Okay, well, we will call to order the budget workshop for December 4th, 2023 to order, and Jenny will give a brief presentation or a presentation. Probably won't be brief.
Oh, yes, it will be brief
Okay.
because you don't need to probably hear from me as much as to be discussing amongst yourselves. But good evening, Mayor Ryan, members of the council. Tonight is hopefully our final budget workshop prior to our Truth and Taxation meeting on December 19th. And what I wanted to do was just take a moment to orient the council with the materials in the packet. You're very familiar with a lot of this information already, but for the sake of the meeting, I think it would be good just to go over a couple of things. Yeah. Perfect. Okay, thank you. So for tonight, primary goal is for the council to decide on what the 2023 pay 2024 final levy will be. As a reminder, the final levy can be lowered but not raised from the preliminary levy. There is a couple of items that if we get to it, or if the council, weaves it into the conversation, would be helpful. Item B5 in your packet. It's just a reference to the Employee Retention Committee, and a few months ago at the beginning of the budget process, the committee had presented some items for council review and feedback. And so if you'd like to provide any feedback or comments on those items, which is the second page of the new items list that the council has, that would be appreciated. Any feedback you have on those items. And then something we haven't talked about since September as well is feedback for me regarding continuing the discussion on the City Hall exterior improvements. If we want to step through that conversation further, do you want me to look at some financing options for what that is, get updates on costs, things like that? I want to make sure that we're not forgetting that conversation after the kind of tour of the building we had with Widseth, and what you'd like us as staff to move forward with that. So in your packet, there is a budget summary, high level information. I think the focus for tonight will be on the new items expenditure list in the budget to figure out what you'd like to include or not include. Overall, for the general fund, the budget in your packet reflects a 21.45 increase from 2023. And what that equates to in a levy is 16.87% increase. The difference between those two reflects the fact that we do generate revenues as a city. So there are revenues coming in from the services we provide and from other areas that offset. So it's not just the budget goes up and the levy goes up the same amount, because we have other revenue sources that do contribute to that amount. However, the council approved a preliminary levy in September of 13%. So we do have a gap in funding of $120,911. So with that gap in funding, the council can either lower the budget by that amount so that we get down to the 13% levy number, that you can maintain that as the preliminary and the final, or you could approve the budget as it is and you just would have an unbalanced budget and you'd be pulling from unreserves to bridge the gap. That's not my recommendation. We haven't done that historically, but that is an option. And I just want to make you aware of that. You can also lower the levy beyond the 13% if you want to go more than what the preliminary number is set at. Just making sure that you're aware that I believe the goal for the council was to have a balanced budget and then to get to at least that 13%. But certainly we'll talk about that as we go. A tax impact model was included in your packet, and just wanted to highlight. So I made the assumption that, okay, the maximum is going to be 13% levy, and our property values in Nisswa will increase about 10%, just under 10% from the prior year. So a couple of scenarios to show you, if we use that 10% increase in valuation, a $200,000 home increasing to $220,000 for 2024, we'll see a net tax impact of $71, assuming the 13% levy increase. One more example, $400,000 residential home going to $440,000. We'll see a tax impact and increase of $137 for 2024. Just have a slide on levy history providing your packet as well. It's a good reference if we ever need to lean back on that. We can certainly come back to that. I have a slide. It's kind of hard to see, I suppose, with everything there, but that's our new items expenditure list. The council will work through that, as well as the Employee Retention Committee list items. This summary is probably the easiest one to work off of. Because it's condensed and I think it reflects kind of the main items in the budget. The items in blue are the items that have been approved by council with respect to 2024 wages and the compensation study that was approved in November. With that, we have a small dollar amount item with respect to increasing our short-term disability policy. Overall cost for next year is $2,400. That I'm planning to bring to the council in December at your meeting for approval. The next two items are the two staffing requests for 2024, one for the police department, one for public works. And then the other budget items, there's half a dozen or so items reflecting increase in capital improvement plan reserves. And something to keep in mind with these items is the amounts that are listed are the increase from 23 to 24. And certainly if there is an interest to cut those numbers down, keeping in mind from my perspective, the importance of just continuing to make some progress. It doesn't have to be as much as we'd all like. I think in a perfect world for it to be everything to be fully funded. At the end of the day, I think continuing to make progress on our strategic plan and investing in our long-term capital plan is important. But there are certainly a lot of departments and needs and variables within that. So understand that, collectively that, that can add up. The next item is the Park and Rec Camp Lincoln improvement item. So this reflects the total estimated cost that we have at this point is about $100,000 for the bathroom, the road, and the parking lot. We have about $35,000 or so in ARPA funding, and the rest needs to come from either a budgeted line item or unreserved funds. One-time project, certainly that's a consideration as well. Our land purchase conversation that the council is working through, looking to the last time we discussed trying to split some of that between budget in our debt service and then potentially unreserved funds, depending on how that purchase comes to be. So that is just basically half of what we originally looked to include for costs coming out of the budget, with any remaining coming out unreserved. And then the last item is the organizational coach concept. I included 10,000 because that was similar to what the compensation study number was, and I was trying to think of how much time potentially a consultant would need, and lots of variables that can come into play with that. So I certainly understand if that's something that we want to start slower with and move forward in the future. Consideration for doing something and investing in something would be, I think, something to talk about. But again, that's just something to have conversation about if that's where we want to go. And this is a private consultant. So I've been gathering names for people who do this work, most out of the cities. And so depending on if we had someone travel here or not, or just provide some materials and resources and kind of do some internal work, again, could vary. And certainly we have money if we needed to spend $1,000 or $2,000 or something like that. I don't think that would be an over concern on the council side in the future during next year if we needed to spend some money on that. But conceptually, that is something I know we've talked about as far as having importance to do that. Budget summary, just overall, in case we need to reference, is here for the council for both the general fund and for the enterprise funds. And I believe that is it for me. So high level, just overview. I anticipate that the council will want to spend their time here, but I'll certainly turn it over to Mayor Ryan, and we'll gladly answer questions and help you as you discuss where you'd like to take the final levy for a couple weeks from now. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So as we know tonight, we want to leave here with a number so that staff can get it put together and we can get it done. Obviously we're at the bottom, we're in the 11th inning here, I think. Past the 9th and in the 11th. So anyhow, I will open it up for the council members to, I don't know what the best way to start is. If we want to say, okay, what do we all think a number is, or what can we live without? What will we have to get rid of? What is there any, or we can go item by item and see if there's consensus among it. I guess I'll leave it up to you all how you want to do that. Ideas?
Okay.
Well, I can spew out what I'm for.
Well, right, and I'm just wondering if there's certain things that we all agree on that we're just gonna have to put off. Then that's one thing that, okay, then we don't have to spend a lot of time on it because, so I don't know, maybe that's what I'll do is I'll just run down the list of the new items. So the Camp Lincoln Parks and Bathroom, the $30,000, for example.
70, you mean?
Well, there's the 30, but that's covered under the
ARPA.
CLR 100. There's $100,000. It's broken down. The first dollar amount, the 30,000, is actually covered under the, I keep calling it the COVID fund.
Sorry, I was not looking at the same sheet you were looking at, so thank you. Okay,
B3.
okay.
So we're mainly, the question is with the $70,000 item, is that something that, where does council feel on that? I'm looking at the capital improvement plans for the $1,000 for the community center. I don't know that that's a bit, and the city hall improvement, 20 from the 23 budget, 1,800. I don't have issue. We got to get started on some of that. I understand that. And I don't think we can put off city hall improvements exterior that we'd all discussed. I think we're pretty much in that envelope where it has to happen. But the Camp Lincoln Update Road and parking lot, 70,000. I don't know where council feels on that or what their thoughts are. Does anyone, I don't know where everyone else feels. I'll just say, I feel that we can nix that for this year. That's a 2.8% reduction.
Do we not have to, are we not obliged to, install?
We have to install the bathroom. So the question is, how do we get there?
Yep.
Get to the property
Yep, I understand.
without creating, developing it in some way. So I think the question would be, if you don't want it in the budget, then you will support it coming out of unreserved to the extent we need to in order to get the bathroom.
Right.
I think that'd be the question. We can't not do the project.
Yeah,
Right,
the
ma'am.
bathroom is 30,000 roughly is what we got in, is what we have in
ARPA will cover that 30,000.
and I also, my understanding is that the 70 is, these are high. We don't know that the exact cost yet because we haven't got the final numbers, but if we have to, it's a one-time shot type thing. It's a, we're not going to have it. It's not going to be reoccurring. So if we leave it out, yeah, it's going to have to come out on reserve funds, the difference. So
When was the last time we pulled something, an item like this, and pulled funds from the unreserved? Do you have any recollection? Cause I don't know if my time being in council here that we have.
Mm-mm.
I think we've always budgeted. We have,
No, we've always budgeted.
right? We've
There's,
always
because
budgeted.
once you take out of the, take the monies out, nothing goes back in.
well, we have taken monies in the past, since I've been on council, out of the unreserved funds. And that is true. It doesn't go back in. I think what the council has to be cognizant of going forward is that if something comes out, it has to go back in. Because there's going to be things coming up that we need to maintain that fund level at. I was just reading the article from the Breezy, I believe it was the Breezy Point they had a public meeting and like their, I think it was their city administrator and their mayor both said that, you know, do you wait for your savings account to be dry before you put money back into it, or do you add to it as you can? How you add to it, that's another discussion for another time, but I just think if we're gonna pull out of unreserved funds, we need to think about how we put back into it to meet future emergencies or other things that we may or may not, you know, run into.
To answer Councilmember Zahn's question, something that comes to mind was county road projects. Now, we've budgeted money to help replenish that and to have money in the future. But there have been a couple of instances more, I think, like that, where there's exterior situations that happen to where we have to contribute money and that's unplanned for. But I don't know that from a city perspective, something significant that we don't include in the budget,
But I look at 2.8%. Because we got to whittle it down from roughly 19, correct?
well, we're at yes, I mean, we're at 16.87. You need 3.87 to get to
Okay.
your preliminary levy.
So that's just my take on the 70,000. I don't know where everyone,
The general fund?
so then we could take that out of the levy. So that cuts 2.8%. Correct?
It
If we
does. So-
don't, if we take that off of this, if we remove the 70,000 from this list, then that's 2.8.
Yes, so what would be helpful, Mayor Ryan, is if you could poll
Yeah.
council members so that
That's
I know
what I'm-
where, yeah, okay, I'm just
Yeah,
making sure that
yep.
that's.
That's what yeah, so I don't know how everyone feels about that. So that item, do we keep it in there or do we remove it?
Remove it. I would say we remove it. We need to.
Let me clarify, removing it.
From
fully
the levy,
From the levy.
yeah.
Okay.
Not doing it.
I would be in favor of removing it from the levy to be paid for by the unreserved fund.
It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be paid for from the unreserved fund, correct, though? I mean, we could still do some sort of fundraiser
Oh,
or
sure, we got time.
something.
yeah.
Yeah, because we have time.
There's time to do that. I have inquired with people down in the Lake Hubert area. Very, just skim the surface. There's a couple people that I want to have an in-depth talk with if the council would so allow me to do that, but that'll be a council decision to do, but we got time to decide those things. But there wasn't a lot of interest in those people wanting to help us pay for it. But I did remind them that they also didn't want to have homes built there. And the council stepped in, the city stepped in and was able to champion their cause. And so, and I'm not afraid of reminding them all of that again. So yes, there's still that opportunity to do that. Yeah. I would be definitely more than willing to work with Amber on that and do a little pushy. So if we pull that out, Joe, are you good with that?
Yeah.
That's okay.
The other question I had was about the land purchase. That's 75,000. Now that's,
What we're gonna do is we're just gonna go down the list.
okay,
Then anything that we can all agree on, or we all agree we can pull out, then we can spend more time discussing the things that anything we have to, you know,
Mhm.
disagree, agree, or where we have to compromise on, so.
Is it possible to use this one?
Sure.
I think it's a little clearer than that one. Thank you.
Yeah, just the other one was highlighted and I could see it better. Okay.
So with the removal of that, that puts the total other items under the middle, other budget items, that puts the percentage from 7.96 to 5.16.
Correct. No, 7.96 to 7.
7.96 to 5.
and it becomes 16.2% that we're at right now
Right, now he's reading, yes, 5 point, yeah,
with that 2.8 out.
okay. And then, The other item, Parks and, well, I might as well just start at the top, the admin CIP. That again, if you remind me, that is kind of money set aside for computers and new.
Computers, yes,
and things of
technology,
that
yes.
nature. Okay. I don't know that we can touch it honestly, because everything seems to change. I don't know if we can. What everyone thinks on that. It's 0.7%. General government building. This was something, we were using this to start up a reserve for
Mhm.
City Hall. This is all part of that long-term planning that we've been talking about with staff and pushing on everybody for a few years now. It has to happen. We don't have anything set aside. The city has never done that. That's the reason that we started this long-term planning stuff. You know, as soon as you build something, you better start planning on how you're gonna maintain it, fix it, and keep it repaired. And that's just not something the city has really done a good job at. So this would start that fund. Do we do that this year? Do we do half of it?
It's a smaller number in my mind. I think we should start doing that.
My thought is keeping all the CIP in.
Mm-hmm. All the CIPs there.
Okay. How does everyone else feel about
I'm fine with that.
the CIPs in general?
I'm fine with that. Just in regards to the land purchase, Jenny, explain the 75,000 again one more time. Is that strictly in relation to the bond?
Correct, yes. So initial cost estimates that the council received reflected a bond payment of roughly $150,000. So back in August, September, we had 6% included in the levy to absorb that full bond payment. And the council discussed, can we split the funding sources for that and say half to the levy? And if we need more, we would pull that from unreserved for whatever a bond number ended up being. So that's where the 3% landed here to say, well, we want to have something, but if we need to take any more from that, we would just take it from unreserved.
So my reaction to that to you all would be, we have not purchased the land yet. We're in obviously the process of it, and it's looking to be, I would say, if you put a percentage on it, Jenny, what do you think the percentage chance of us ending up securing the land being at?
That's a difficult question.
Because what I'm proposing is perhaps tabling that, and when the time comes, then we pull that from the unreserved fund, just so we can get this down another 3%. It's just an idea.
That's what I was thinking as well. At this point, we have nothing concrete about that yet.
Yeah. Anybody else has any ideas?
No. Any ideas?
Yeah, my personal opinion, I think we're a long ways away from purchasing that land.
I think, well, my question is, will the land be there in 25? Will it be there? I mean, like you say, we can pull it out of unreserved funds. That's true. We can do that. But do we need a placeholder for a bond in the budget, or do we need, I mean, I think we can all agree that there's gonna have to be some negotiating on price and stuff based on what we all saw. Okay, I mean, we all, and we know where that process is. So, and that's why I know, I see where Jesse, where you're going with that is the odds of it coming, you know, that, where that number will strike a chord with us and the seller. Yeah, we're quite a ways apart.
We don't need a line item in 24 if the council's comfortable not issuing a bond. We'd still probably, let's just say that the conversation continued and we were able to work towards something. the likelihood is that by the time, based on the timing of that, that the bond issue, the first payment would come due in 25. So that's going to impact the 25 levy.
Correct.
Mhm.
That puts us down then to,
Well, then we can, do we all agree we can nix that?
Nix that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, so there's another.
One question back up on the 10,000 for the general government building CIP, the
Mhm.
10,000. Is that for all the buildings in town? This one specific? What is that? What's,
My understanding was, yes, it is
This one or all
predominantly
of them?
this building, but all, it basically, we would have one fund. We're looking at one building fund that would eventually incorporate all the buildings, you know, in one. Right now, I think this is the one that's in the greatest need of work. But Tom, do you want to answer?
Yeah, can you come up? Thanks.
So all 10,000 is we just recently replaced a furnace in this building. That was
Right.
$10,000. It was probably the single most expensive item in any one building that we have. So that's where we picked 10,000 from.
sure,
but it could be used for any property. It's not
Yeah.
solely with this one.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted clarification on that.
Mhm.
Yep.
Another point too, I'd like to add to maybe knock it down under the 13% threshold is. And just confirm, is it 38,000 of the remaining American Relief Plan Act funds? Is it 38,000?
Yeah, approximately.
38,000?
Yep.
And the organizational coach, you're anticipating high side 10,000? It could be,
Very high
it could be
side.
5 grand
It-
for all you know,
Right, right.
So with cause that bathroom cost is gonna be inclusive of a 10% contingency, I would anticipate,
Right.
right? Maybe we can roll the dice on a couple $1,000s and include the organizational coach to be paid for via ARPA funds, which will then drop that to 12.8%.
So the council did approve a resolution to dedicate the ARPA funds to the
Yep.
parks.
Yep, so
project.
this has to stay there.
Never mind, I wasted my breath. Why don't
That's
you guys
okay.
stop me?
That's okay.
But on that point, we could. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but we could reduce that organizational coach by 5 grand.
What is that for?
Well, that's for working towards what opportunities would there be for the city and staff to engage in communication, development, team building, just conversations around having a third party help to facilitate those discussions. Very broad and very need to work with I've met with one consultant via Zoom, and I will meet with others to say, what would something like this, what do you do in that realm to kind of understand some ideas for building that camaraderie, that teamwork, and how can we work towards, and even with the council potentially is folding in all of the different components within the city to say, let's improve communication and how we operate things like that. So it was the number you might have missed it, Councilmember Hall, but I had picked 10 because that was where the compensation study number was, and trying to think of similar time invested in things of that nature, but it could vary extreme. So certainly I like the concept of it and hope the council's supportive, but there's a lot of different ways to accomplish that.
I'd take it off. That's just me.
I know the council, in discussions, have said that we want to see positive work environment. We want to see things move forward, and we're looking at the future, not the past and stuff too. So, if we have something in there, if we don't, again, I think leaving part of it in there is a good thing. It's a good sign. So staff knows that we're serious, that we want to see things moving forward. We don't want to see things, we want to see positive movement all around 360 degrees. And this is there to help facilitate that if necessary. So, the other thing that I think is if we leave, say, 5,000 in there, If it doesn't come to fruition, it isn't needed. We can always roll that into something else later on in the year if something comes up that's needed. Just like we do now with current budgets, if you get to the towards the end of the year and they find we have money left over, we can nick off a few of these things that we're planning for next year early, like we've done this year and in past. So that's my thought. So.
And I think we've had that at my company before too, to be coached, to be training, having a third party there that's not emotionally involved, and then getting everybody to communicate well. I think that's invaluable. And it's something that I think we do need to have at this point, considering the discussions that we've had about what's been going on here at the city hall.
Well, a question that we should all answer is this something that we want to burden taxpayers with? Or is this something perhaps once we get a hard dollar cost, perhaps just take it out of the general fund when the time comes?
That's the other option too.
Yeah.
Which I'll be honest, that's what I'm more in favor of. It's an easy pathway to get it to 12.8%.
You have my
Say again?
you have my yes.
Oh, okay.
And that's a good idea too. I mean, we could always take it out that way, but I definitely want to make sure that we're committed to promoting the positive atmosphere as much as possible. And I think that's part of it, a very important part of it.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are, this topic should be discussed in more detail, maybe at a different time behind doing something like this, $10,000. It seems like a lot of money, for something like this when also too, I think should just be, this item should be discussed in more detail and set on agenda at some point
Mhm.
to go ahead, but where the money comes from, I don't know if it needs to impact the levy. Definitely saying not get rid of the concept, but maybe just move the dollars to another spot. I don't know.
So
nix that.
technically, if we remove that, that puts us, Jenny, tell me if I'm wrong, 12.8%, which is a 0.8 increase.
Are we subtracting from 16.87 or are we okay. 5, 10.
Did I get that right?
Yeah, that would get us to 12.8.
No. Jenny's calculating. Oh, the levy, right, so remove,
Thank you.
Yep.
My math was right too. See? Yeah,
us young kids who don't know.
that won't happen very often.
10.67, like Maggie said.
Well, no.
Be very, very careful how you answer
And
the
I know
next
that one. And then just to make sure, I know that Chief Taylor's not here, but to make sure that,
Well, I was gonna go into that just
Okay.
next, if you don't mind.
no, good.
The police department office manager is a must. Okay, I've talked to Craig about this for the last 3, possibly 4 years. As I told Chief Taylor, he doesn't have to convince me. I already know it's necessary. He has to convince the other council members, the other 4, the ones that don't understand. But it is getting ridiculous. The requirements, just like firefighters, the training levels. I mean, you can't possibly keep up with all this stuff. And the state and the Fed, everyone is getting more and more and more. And with the current environment, not releasing data that shouldn't be released. You just can't have multiple people doing that. And that's why I think that's one reason why this position, and we got in trouble with that once already. So I think this position is a necessary, has to happen. I know Chief Taylor said that we got $44,000 there that he would like to use towards it. But, and we could do that, but if we use 44,000 towards it, that means you either A, start the position later in the year, and it's covered with the $44,000 grant money, I'll call it. But now you have a 3.8% increase in the levy for 2025 guaranteed already,
Mhm.
Mhm.
okay? If you put the 44,000 to it and you budget 33,000 for it, you've got 1.7% that you're gonna have to raise the levy the next year automatically to cover it. So, looking at it, I think we leave it in there as it is. The 44,000 is still there. It's likely that he might even have to use that money for squad cars or something, because as you all read, we reordered dang things from Ford for the second time and the third time. Wait, yeah, third and second time now for two of them, and we have another one coming up. And the problem with Ford is they went all in on EVs, so they cut their other manufacturing aspects down. Well, they're paying the price for it, and now they're trying to scramble back. And fortunately for Chevy and Dodge, they've been picking up some pretty nice contracts. But anyway, so the other problem is if we switch to Chevy or Dodge, all the internal equipment has to be different. Because your cages are different,
Mhm.
your mounts are different, because everything has to be in the airbag safe zone. And the interior of the vehicle is designed different. And so, so I understand the reason to stick with Ford. But so he might need that 44 anyway. But the 77, I think it needs to stay in. That's my 2 cents. I don't know where the rest of you stand.
I'm good with it.
Or cut it back 44,000 worth and put it off till that portion off to the next year. Those are the options we got. That I'm for what I said first. Keep it in there as is, and the 44 stays as well.
I don't see an issue with that. I would stay with it.
Mark?
I guess I'd be comfortable with that.
Jesse?
I have no problem with it.
Yeah, no, I'd leave it as is.
The next item is the Public Works Maintenance Tech 1. That's 79,000. Do we need that position now this year? Not saying that it isn't necessary, but one of the things that was brought up was, do we try and get somebody on while, and I think, and if I'm wrong on this, Tom, stop me, but I think the general understanding or ultimately the best case scenario is that somebody that's already there at the department would move into wastewater or moving into wastewater. And then we would hire this as a lower level employee. So this would be the bottom level coming in. Okay. So from hiring an employee standpoint, that's the best case scenario, granted. But we don't know that we're going to need that other person in wastewater right now until either one person retires or we start growing more and start adding additional step stations and things, which is kind of what the thought process was gonna be when the economy was kind of going pretty good and we had things on board that it looked like things were, this is where this might go, this is where that addition would be, et cetera. But right now, I think it's something that we can put off until we know more. I don't think it's gonna take a year to train somebody in, especially if they're coming from within. They've already been doing this, a lot of this stuff. And the people that are interested in doing it are, relatively knowledgeable in it and are working towards licensures and things of that nature. I don't know that we need to add that person right now, today, for this year. That saves 3.16%. That's my take. I'll open up to the rest of you.
Being on the public works myself, I feel, I can empathize with the feeling that we need to have an additional person who can be trained in and to develop. And then to knock up somebody to the wastewater treatment. And I don't know if we really have somebody that can do that at this point. Do you think we have someone like that, Tom? Okay. And, not having, the people that we do have been there for a while now. And I am worried that somebody could go out or retire or have to take a leave. And then we would be in trouble as far as trying to keep up with the services. I do feel that way. And I think it's a good idea to, at this point, with the future of parks, that are going to be coming up here as well, that we keep that person in.
Okay, so keep that item.
Keep that item just as it is.
Okay.
Do you have any comments or feedback you'd like to make, Tom?
So we talked about this as a department, Monday, I think, no, last week, excuse me. And we're starting to see there's some items coming up with wastewater that we have to approach. Some of you are familiar with a letter we got from the MPCA regarding some deficiencies we had. And one of those is, we have an I&I problem in the city. And so what that is inflow and infiltration, meaning we have leaks into our system. So the way that is, one of the ways that's remedied is you clean and televise lines in town, and then you start addressing where those leaks are and fixing them. So this is a project I would like to push on to whoever's gonna be our new sewer operator, because, and the reason for that is they will learn the system on an intimate level if they're involved in that project. So it's a project where we would be hiring a contractor to do that work, but they would work with one of the city employees. Right today, it would be Mike, the sewer operator, but I would prefer to push that to a new operator coming in for them to really learn where the valves and all the structures are in the street going forward. So that's one thing that we need to do to address what the MPCA would like. So we had talked about splitting this cost somehow, if that made it any more palatable to the council. We have a little bit of a tougher time with that because we have had the sewer fund cash flow already figured out by our consultant PFM. And so we're, as you know, we're coming in at about, I think, an 8% increase in our, well, we improved our rate for next year already.
Mhm.
So if we were to push that cost on to the sewer at all, now we have to go back and do we adjust that? So I would be fine with if we tried to hire somebody halfway through the year, if that made it work better. And then possibly in 25, then we could work out something with sewer. maybe we're working toward, then in 26 we hiring another half then in the final half of the maintenance guy in 27, so that we would end up adding both of our guys that we've talked about
So the ultimate
by
goal,
the end of 27.
ultimate goal is prospectively to have 2 new techs and be full-time by end of 27.
That would be the ideal, yeah.
Okay. And do you anticipate upcoming retirements?
We do have one. I haven't gotten a specific date yet, and I haven't really asked, but it will be well before 27. I believe.
Is it something that you think is going to be an impact in 24, which would impact our decision to this?
I know he's preparing for retirement, looking at real estate and other issues.
Okay.
I don't want to guess, and I don't want to speculate on an open mic because I know he watches this, and I'd rather him be the one to give you his retirement date.
Okay.
So if you move somebody else in, it's like, okay, we hire a public work maintenance tech 1.
Mhm.
So now we have 5 maintenance techs. Just, we have 5 guys plus Mike. Right? Would be 4 plus Mike. Right?
Yeah.
So it'd be 4 plus Mike. Now, if that one person moves into the sewer stuff working in that, does that portion of his wage then come out of the sewer fund, or it can't
It
until
can't until
we
till
reset?
next year.
Mhm.
Okay, got it. That was the question I was trying to get at in my head, so,
He'd be doing work in the sewer department as a maintenance tech.
right, got it.
So you are fully good with the notion of posting this position midway through the year, which would probably be like a spring graduation for this next person, or
It's better than nothing. I mean, we need to start somewhere, and
So if you-
if we can't swallow a full year, chances are, we're late enough now that if by, say, the December council meeting, you were to approve this budget and we started advertising somewhere after the first of the year, it'd take us a month or 2 to
To
get
source
somebody on board to begin with. So if we delayed that a couple more months to make that July, let's say, it won't impact how we're gonna start this up, I don't think, a lot.
I like it. So Jenny, where does that put us then if we cut that in half then?
9.09.
How does everybody feel about 9.09? Thank you, Tom.
Mhm.
9.09?
Looking at Maggie too to make sure I did that right. Okay.
Just for PR purposes, you want to find something to drop it down by 0.09 to get it to the 8 threshold, which means that then
I'm sure I could
it would
work
be a
that
deep-
out if
yeah.
you, are you like looking to get 8?
I'm just looking at you all.
Mhm.
Point, what is
Well,
it?
9.09, or 8.09 is what you're saying, if you drop it by 1 point.
No,
No,
like 0.1 point, so it's
But
then
just to get it to
8.99,
Not
the Walmart
8.99.
rollback special. Kmart blue lights.
Those end in 7.
Yeah, I think it's important that we at least move forward with it. And if if Tom agrees that, like through half the year, wait until, or to get somebody in, but the important thing is that we move forward, that we're not just kicking it down another year. I think it's been several years that we haven't done anything on this.
But everyone,
Has been since I've been here with.
but everybody has to understand, which is, I'm just,
Carries to the next
that
year.
there's going to be the other half of it.
They'll hit
Yes.
the
will
next year,
automatically have to be included in the 25,
right?
which is, I'm I'm not discrediting anything. I'm just saying that that has to be added in 25 then. So whatever your cost of living is, whatever inflation is, that affects the budget. You can add that to it and, you know, so just. Okay. But it's, you know. it's
Source
half-
it in March
half
and
of
fill it in June and they start June, July. Well. I give my seal of approval for now,
I can live with that.
Yeah, I
With
can
the
live with that
decrease.
too.
from year over year, correct?
Yes,
Yes.
and just to
In a
clear,
year of some of the hottest inflation this country's ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
just to ensure I'm on 8.99, is that where we want to go? Or are we okay at the 9.09?
Well, I mean, we got contingencies built into all these.
Yep.
Squeeze
Okay.
contingencies and get it to 8.99, so we don't
Yeah.
have
Well, I think that.
25 people here at the Truth and Taxation meeting.
Can
And
we,
if nobody's gonna be able to make that, let me know, because last year Jenny, remember, pulled up last minute. You called me, I think I was in a meeting at work.
I
Yeah.
would encourage every council member to make it to that, and I know that can be hard for those of us that are, you know, working full-time, or those of you that are running your businesses, I get it. But I would encourage you to go to it, because it's very eye-opening.
It is.
It's very eye-opening, and, so, but that's a whole nother discussion. I can go with 8.99 then. I'm okay with that if you guys, if
Yeah,
everyone else.
I'm fine with that.
I think it's important that we come out of this for the city and for the taxpayer and for the staff as a consent, as a unanimous decision.
Yep.
If there's more people want to cut, say so. You know, if you got more things you want to cut, put it out there, let your feelings be known, and let's discuss it. That's what we're here for. But we also have a compensation study coming up. We'll have to see where that takes place or what happens, and I want to remind the council, and I won't let you all forget, not that you will, but we told the unions, we told the employees that we're not gonna sit back and wait for the contract to expire to look at whatever the compensation study. We're gonna work on it right away. So that may mean, for a couple of the unions, it'll mean negotiations again next year anyway. For one union, it'll mean a letter of understanding, which, you know, is pretty commonplace. But it's not something we're gonna sit back on. We don't know what that's gonna do or not do. We don't know yet. We'll find out. But so that item is on the horizon, closer than we think.
Did that cover everything on our agenda?
If there is any, that is by far the most important. So thank you for that. That allows us to finalize everything and get ready for our truth and taxation at 6 PM.
So do you want a motion from us, or it's a workshop?
It's a workshop. I have consensus. I believe everyone agreed with that.
Joel, you
Joe,
go.
You're, okay. Yeah, I'm good with that. That's
Okay,
That's
yeah,
great.
we're all in agree.
When's the truth and taxation one more time?
Truth and taxation is December.
the 19th,
You're
before the
talking-
regular meeting at 6 PM. You were thinking of the Board of Appeal,
The 19th?
Board of Appeal night. Yeah, the 19th is our regular meeting night.
So what was our final percentage? 11?
I'm sorry?
What was the final levy? I mean,
Should be,
what are we setting at now?
8.99.
Okay.
With respect, so that was the most important. Thank you for that discussion. That was very helpful for us. Items 5 and 6 on your agenda are just if council has feedback on either of those two items, just providing an opportunity to ensure you have the space to provide feedback to the Employee Retention Committee on those items that they had presented for priorities from their group from back in the spring. And then also just City Hall exterior improvements, if you'd like me and Tom to continue to work towards addressing the issues and bringing something to you, I would anticipate that would make the most sense, is to bring something to the council for consideration for how we would propose to remedy some of the building issues.
Right.
But just want to make sure that that is something you would like us to do.
Well, the reference to employee retention committee stuff, the items with health insurance, for example, the health insurance, cash in lieu of taking the insurance. I know that was discussed by the council as a whole at the time, and we were not in favor of doing that. And that's just because, you know, the benefit is there for you. If you choose not to take it, okay, I get it. But at this time, I know the council as a whole was not in favor of that. And longevity pay and stuff has been, we did discuss that in negotiations and that, it wasn't, you know, a one-time, flat amount, which I believe we did do. So, that is there. So. I know the employee retention committee probably feels that, I mean, this, it's not falling on deaf ears. That may be what some may think, it's not. But as you can see, there's a lot to pay for, and there's only so much money in the kitty. So we got to figure out where we're gonna put it all, and there's other items that have come up, and to Jesse brought it up too, with this, what's the lodging tax discussion. And when they start advertising all over the place in the country about how great an area you have, how fast it can grow and stuff like that. That sounds great, but as other conversations will be taking place this year, at least I'll be bringing them up, you know, places where we need to start looking at storm sewer versus not having storm sewer. If you're gonna charge that much money for a piece of property, you're gonna have to let people use more of it. I'm sorry. I mean, in the past, the people of the city haven't wanted that. They want you to, well, sorry, but it's, commercial areas are gonna be growing. There's gonna be certain needs for stuff. And we're gonna have to get ahead of that ball as far as we can before it happens. And so we set the rules, set everything in place. How does that happen? Well, for roads and streets, I don't know. Okay, that's what they're gonna have to figure out. Where is storm sewer warranted? How do you run it from point A to point B? What's it really? It's not just a matter of putting the conduit in the ground and saying, well, the water can go here. No, it's gotta end up someplace, but where can it end up? It's not going to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, it's not gonna be a simple answer. Yeah. Exactly. So. Right. So. The exterior improvements, what was there, anybody have any comments on the exterior improvements, where we're at with that, or?
Is there anything that needs to be addressed immediately? Yeah,
Yeah, it's on the agenda, so I just, the next steps.
is that not an insurance claim?
Not unless it's damaged by hail or something.
I think if something else were to get damaged in the building because of it, that would be covered, but the roof
But nothing,
itself.
so, sorry, I must have misheard you then. Nothing's been damaged due to the leak in the roof?
I can't remember, Tom, maybe you can refresh everyone's memory, because I know we've talked to this, you've mentioned this to me many times over the last 6 years, but why isn't it covered by any bond that the builder had and or the roofer.
I can answer that. 1 to 2 years in bonds for the projects are done once the
Right.
job's done.
But then when there was. Okay, sure. That always helps. Okay. Great. So in other words, it's our problem. Simply put.
I would vote to table. Table that for the time being. I'm,
Well, I think
I,
it's gonna have to get done this
Yeah,
year.
I mean, I don't know why we don't move ahead with getting quotes on it and getting the ball rolling.
well, that's something that we're gonna have to. So we're just issuing a bond, which means we'll have bond payments I will have to factor in for. Is that correct? The financing side aspect of it?
Well, in theory, again, not trying to go back to the unreserved funds for, every major project. I think that, the question is if, or could that be rolled into a potential future bond issuance for something else as well? That could be a conversation. The road bond is coming up. That's not to say you can't combine things and not to take
Right.
away from anything, just trying to, maximize how and when you issue debt. But you can certainly use unreserved funds depending on ultimately the number of things you want to fix with the building. Or issuing a bond, maybe in conjunction with potentially something else, is an option as well. A standalone could, yes, but
Yeah.
it might make sense to do it in conjunction with something.
Now, the fire department roof is done, right?
Yes.
Got it, yeah.
My feeling on this building is we've suffered with it as it is for close to a decade. If you guys needed an extra year to figure out how to do a better project, I wouldn't be afraid of that. I wouldn't want to see it go 5 years.
And I do agree with Tom, was there's been a discussion in the past. There's probably more issues behind the sheetrock, but let's not open it up now and find out. Let's out of sight, out of mind.
Is there mold?
What-
To anybody's knowledge?
Well, there's been water on it so many times, I would guess it's almost inevitable.
Sure, well, you're out.
I mean, it's been multiple storms, multiple years.
Yeah. But it's not an air conduit or anything, so it shouldn't affect. You don't smell the musty odor. I
You
don't.
don't know, so
But if we discuss it this year, because we'd like Jenny said, we have a road bond coming up. We've got stuff coming up. And if we have to roll it into, say a land, if we end up at a point where we all decide, hey, let's grab this as a great deal, could we roll something into that? But I think at least get the idea on the ball, a good idea of what it's gonna be. Obviously, prices are gonna change, but
I guess my personal feeling on this is if this is a building we anticipate using for the next 20 years as a city hall, I'd like to see a bigger project done that addresses the locks and all the other things that we've talked about, paint and carpet.
Yep.
And, the bigger things, the building isn't gonna fall down from it in the next year.
Right.
So if we can time them all together, probably makes sense.
I'm in favor of that. Yeah, personally.
thank you. Does anybody have anything else? Jenny, do you need anything else? Okay,
Feel like that was a productive workshop.
does anyone else have anything? Mark, Joe? No? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for coming. Joe, does changing this stuff like this to 6 work better for you?
The later the better for me always.